When we talk about women of change in politics making a difference, you go from Condoleezza Rice, from Elijah Ransom Kuti, to even Joyce Banda, and even Ellen Sirleaf Johnson of Liberia. Women in politics have become an agenda that has been most thriving in every Nigerian mind, especially that of the women. Gender Agenda is a women empowerment political talk show that seeks to address the state of nationhood, governance and policy making for the Nigerian woman. It seeks to look at the ambiguity in gender affiliation, especially with political parties, and the representation of the Nigerian woman for and in politics. Gender Agenda, Women Arise, exclusively on AIT. My name is Adora and this is Gender Agenda. One of the most fascinating things about politics and women's participation in politics is the growth across Africa, especially from sub-Saharan Africa to all the African countries and even in Europe. It might interest you that Rwanda has the highest participation of women in politics. Looking at the statistics, with 64% of women in parliamentary and even in the legislative duties in the country. Well, South Africa seems to be numbering a bit, 40%, and you also look at Uganda and even Liberia, of course with Sirleaf Ellen Johnson. But then let's look at Nigeria. What exactly is the problem? Because one thing we do know is that a lot of women are talking, but we see very little of them in the political space. You're welcome to Gender Agenda. Today we're doing something very colloquial. Not really a politician, and by the, structure, if you want to define her as a politician, you're free to. But in all sense, I call her a woman with heart, a woman with value and virtue. Because in doing what is supposed to be done, I think the policies are passed from one generation to the other. And I'm talking about no other person than Mudugbe Ozola, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Body Enhancement Surgery. And I want to welcome her here. Beautiful. Just like the breath of fresh air. You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
So let's get to meet you. Who really are you? I mean, when people think about you, it brings on board a lot of conflicting emotions. Some say they know you, some say, oh no, there's a lot of emotions involved. So let's get to meet you firsthand.
Well, I'm pretty straightforward, pretty simple to know in the sense of what I do, which the public is aware of. I pioneered cosmetic surgery in Nigeria in 2001. I was 27 years old then. I'm 41 now, so I've been around for a little bit. A lot of people know me for that, the cosmetic surgery business, Body Enhancement Limited. But also, I'm pretty well known for my humanitarian activities in Nigeria. The foundation which I founded used to be called Beers Foundation, yes, but it's now Body Enhancement Foundation, and we're very fortunate to have Archbishop Desmond Tutu as our patron. Other than that, I'm a...
Okay, fine. Let's not let the cat out of the bag. Yeah. All right, let's go with the flow. Now, when you've been in Nigeria for quite a while, and you've seen the political space and how it affects women, and looking into a lot of the things that you do for humanity, especially women and even children and men, a lot of it shows there's still lacking an element of women structure in politics and participation. How do you evaluate it right now, especially having been into the system so far?
Well, 13 years of being in Nigeria, things have changed. I remember when I first came here, I'm Nigerian, but when I relocated home, there were not as many women actively involved in politics. I think at that time you had maybe a few people like Senator Itagiwa. Mm-hmm. She really was the only person I can think of that made any impact or had a voice for women in Nigeria. Things have changed. There are a lot more active women, the Bakari lady, and there are a few, I suppose, and then there are a lot more women now that are occupying prominent positions in ministries and whatnot. Apart from that, how active are they in actually empowering younger women and enforcing or trying to encourage policies to be put in place to protect women and the girl child from rape and all kinds of different issues that we are dealing with as women in Nigeria, because this is a chauvinistic country. I mean, it's Nigeria. It's very, very male dominated, whereby when a woman has a voice and has an identity, there must be something wrong with her.
This is Gender Agenda. Okay, let's look at the interpreted exploration. You mentioned something really clear here: chauvinistic society, Nigeria, classic, and I'm sure all the African countries can relate with that as well, especially when you're looking at culture and tradition and what's expected of a woman. And you're also looking at religion as well. Now, if you come back to Nigeria, let's say, for instance, you've spoken about ministerial appointments and governance. Do you think it's just about the woman getting there and being one of the boys, or is it maybe a case of content and structure deficiency? Without a plan, you cannot actually plan anything for anyone. So a lot of women, you think there's something called the structural development of the initiatives lacking there as well?
I'm sure a lot of them, before they got the appointments, they had plans. I'm sure, because a lot of people have visions and they have all their goals and set up. Or when I get this appointment, or I'm in this position, I'm going to help people and I'm going to do this and do that. And when they get there, it's like going on a journey, and you say when you get to your destination, you're going to change people to think the way you want to think and go along with you. And you get your destination and you're the only one there with that vision, and you have to struggle to even survive in that place. I think that's a lot. That's most likely what is going on, because you have a lot of, and then when you look at it, even when you look at the few women we have in prominent positions, ministerial positions and whatnot in Nigeria, everybody's always picking on them for one reason or the other. When the male counterparts do even worse things, nobody gets to talk about them. So it becomes a struggle for survival, in my opinion. I mean, I'm assuming that's what's going on. Okay. And then a lot of the policies and the development and structural things that should be in place tend to take the back burner. Okay. Because just trying to prove oneself that one is competent to occupy the position that one is in, it becomes a problem, but that really should not be an excuse.
All right, now when you look at regional parliamentary issues, African women consist 50% of the seats when you talk about Pan-African issues. And you go maybe back to US, where you see in the Senate you have about maybe 18% of women and 20% and of course in the lower house. But when you come back to Nigeria, even when you go from the first assembly to the current assembly, you will see very little structure of women. We've never had a first Senate president woman ever in Nigeria. Maybe we might have think it was deputy governor, but not yet in the law and the legal system. We have Aloma Mukhtar in the judiciary, which is also a breath of fresh air. Now, if you look at mentorship and what I call raising a sister up, you find out a lot of women, rather than help one another, bring down one another. Do you think there is something wrong there, or is just about people not wanting to relinquish power?
Both. Both. Even outside of occupying political appointments and whatnot, unfortunately, a lot of women have that mentality whereby they feel they're in competition with one another. And unfortunately, they take that even when they go into office. I think it's just a gender issue, quite honestly. And unfortunately, it doesn't help matters because it's not empowering us as women in any way, shape, or form. And then, of course, they love all the praises and the excellencies, all the attention, all the hype that comes with government, of being having access to such power, and that applies to men too. So when they get in there, they don't want to let go.
This is gender agenda. Let's come back a little to what you do now. Before it became Body Enhancement Foundation, it was Body Enhancement Annual Reconstructive Surgery. Now, you have had one of the amazing moments in your life working with people who needed help to find a value for the body and how to look. I'm sure you remember Suleiman and Fumi and Jude, which is one of the ones that resonates. And I remember one of the stories where you talked about the little girl who recognized you and ran to you. And for you, that was just the most blissful moment ever. Now, if you look at what you're doing and you look at politics and politicians, and you're from Edo State, I presume, and your first work has been in Edo State. Tell us a bit about that experience and what vacuum did that leave in your heart, especially looking at women and children dying in poverty?
Politicians, and in my opinion, are not really doing what they're supposed to do. Well, people, when you're appointed in office, in my definition of public office, the essence of that is to serve. And they're not serving properly. Things that should be done for the masses, which it's their right. Those are they're owed to them. Electricity, proper education, good healthcare system. That's their fundamental human rights, and even more so should be given to them, even by their governors, by their senators, and blah blah blah. But instead, when they do receive little bits of those things, it's as though it's a privilege and should be grateful. I have seen this firsthand. I'm not a politician. I don't belong to any political party. But the foundation, which I'm very actively involved in what we do, we go out everywhere. And we just did a program, a food donation program in Edo State, in my local government. And it was very shocking because we took 850 kg bags of rice, 660 bottles of oil, 4,000 packs of salt, 2,400 packs of Indomie, which the Indomie was donated to us by the Indomie Corporation. And then Dana Group gave us some medication to give to hospitals. We got there, and first of all, apparently no politician, even when they're coming to solicit their votes or get them to vote for them, had even done anything of that magnitude in the first place. And we just came as a foundation to do that. That already was very shocking to me, because you had people saying, oh, when they come, they give us little tin or handful of rice and tell us to go share with our families.
Polythene bags.
In polythene bags. As if, like this kind of, And then we got there and we saw, and my local government, Omo West is not the poorest local government in Edo State. It's certainly not. We have a lot of successful people from Edo State, even from my local government. And you see that they were fighting for food as though they had not eaten in weeks and in months. There were people fighting and struggling for food. There were foods that were spilled on the ground, rice that was spilled on the ground. You had women on the ground packing the rice mixed with stones and sand and grass and putting them in bags so they could take home and filter them out and eat. And a lot of these people have children abroad. They have children, other parts of Nigeria, wherever it is. But yet the hunger, the desperation, I couldn't believe it. It showed that there's so much hunger in the land. And like I said, my local government is not the poorest, but yet that was the reaction we got, and that was the experience we had. So it goes to wonder, what are people doing? What are our House of Reps members doing? What are senators doing? I was told about a village not too far from mine, very rural. I mean, they don't have electricity there. And yes, and one of the politicians that campaigned and got elected by his people promised his people to do a well for them.
Not a borehole.
Not a borehole.
Okay.
And they voted for him, and he didn't do it. And you get to wonder, what is going on here? This, in my opinion, is just sheer wickedness. And that's just one place we went to. There are other places, and you hear different stories, and you get to wonder, what is going on here? Is there a complete disconnect between the politicians and the people in their constituency? I mean, what is going on here? What are the political parties doing? Because as far as I'm concerned, the political parties should hold their flag bearers responsible. I have several companies that I'm a CEO of, and my staff is a representation of me. I will not tolerate any of my staff representing me in the way that I do not want to be represented. And that should be the way these political parties should see things. In my opinion, I think they should have guidelines, mandatory rules and regulations, where that they tell their flag bearers, if we get you into office, you must do certain things within a specific period of time. You must do this for your people, you must do this and do this. And if they don't, I mean, this is Nigeria, we've seen them move people out of office overnight. They should do it. I think a lot of this, as much as you and I will sit and we look at these issues, those that are put, and talk about it, the people that are putting them into their office, if they don't share the same vision, most of them don't even know what's going on outside. They have 24 hours electricity, standby generator, constant. They don't know when there's no power. They don't know when there's no diesel flowing or there's no petrol stations are shut down. They don't know what's going on. They don't know what's going on in the schools, that little children are being raped in schools by their teachers. Because why? Their kids are abroad. There's a complete disconnect. It's not just from the bottom, from the top, and it filters from the top all the way down. And what I saw in Edo State was, in my state, made me wonder, seriously, what is going on here? How is this going to end? Is this going to change in any way, shape, or form? I don't know.
Let's go down to the the counties, to the municipalities and the councils. Now, if you're talking about emancipation or life and livelihood for these people, you're looking at the women at the rural area and their children. Do you think that representation of women in politics should actually start from the lowest, talking about going back to the rural areas and maybe the way up? Because if you look at it, majority of the problems stem from the rural areas, and that is the problem. I mean, you look at the Chibok girls, it happened in the village. So you're looking at a problem where you need a high concentration of women representation at the rural level. How do you think this is possible, considering what you've talked about?
Let's be very realistic about how people think here in Nigeria. Unfortunately, the Nigerian psyche has been destroyed and damaged to the point whereby even people in the rural areas that feel they have that vision, oh my God, the day I get into office, I will do this or do this. But when they see the role models they have to see, that they watch, and the kids and the stories they hear of this person laundered this much money and got away with it. This one does this and does that and get away with it. What makes you think the average Nigerian man is thinking about helping himself, or rather helping his neighbor or even those around him? They're not interested in that. Everybody's waiting for their own turn. So how does stuff change? How would there be change? Even the Chibok issue. I remember very well when the incident happened and the first rally in Abuja held. I was one of the people there. We all, in the pouring rain, we all marched to the National Assembly and went back. I was there because it was, in my interpretation, it was a protest against Boko Haram, not the government. As far as I'm concerned, Jonathan didn't go to the village and go to get those girls. It was, hundreds of us came out to protest and condemn what Boko Haram did. By the second day that I went, I realized that it was not that. People have taken advantage of the whole thing and turned it to a whole different, they've politicized it and everything, and I promise you I never went back again. That was it. Unfortunately, the poverty, the role models that they have seen has given them reasons to believe, well, you know what, let it be my own turn. And when it's their own turn, it's a matter of, it's all boils down to survival of the fittest. Everybody wants to take their own and move. So you go back again to the same circle to do what again? To take those that they are just looking any way, shape, or form. There was a video I saw recently online of a reporter went to a school, a primary school in some rural area, and was interviewing students. And the little boy, probably 5 years old, when he was asked what he wants to be when he grows up, he said an arm robber. Why? Because he sees arm robbers, they rob, they have food to eat, they get to wear clothes. And then you get to wonder, which of the arm robbers? There are different categories. If someone takes off with a trust fund, isn't that a thief? And then if one takes a gun and comes to your house, isn't that a thief? How do you differentiate them? So it becomes a big issue when it comes to the mentoring, like you said. Who is mentoring who? Who are they looking at to mentor them to say what?
This is gender agenda. Considering what you have just said, about the society and especially the rural area, don't you think that a woman's voice should be the loudest? And if we need a voice, the mentoring should come from the woman to the girl child, because at least that should be where the focus should begin.
That's what expected. That is what is expected. That is what it should be. There are some of us that are doing our own bit. You also have a foundation. You also reach out to people that are displaced. I have a foundation. I do my bit. But just two of us, for example, we're not enough. And more people need to do, more women need to do more. You have, for example, Oprah Winfrey, who opened a girls' school in South Africa to empower and teach and groom young women. I don't see any reason why all these multi-billionaires that we have, women in Nigeria that are multi-billionaires, that are in office, that have a lot of money, haven't done things like that, where they can take young girls with good potentials. Find out those with high scores, high GPAs from schools, but they are poor. Take them out of where they are, the bushes. Have a hostel. They sponsor their education. After all, the government has trust funds and they have scholarships that they send children abroad everywhere.
Now, 2015. It's around corner. That's the big boom when you talk about 2015. I mean, a lot of political parties have come out with their big wigs to contest. Now, what is worrying is that you've not seen a woman's face.
Yes.
Predominantly, it's male. And you look at the autonomous emergence of women's roles, and we've seen them do a lot of summits and conferences and calling each other and bringing each other together. Getting past the vociferation to action is one thing. Now, what do you think could also enhance it? Because when you look at a lot of the structures that encourages a Nigerian woman, you seem to see a lot of stigmatization when you look at culture, you look at tradition, you look at religion. So what do you think can happen for a miracle? I call it a miracle between now and next to see a woman come out and say, I want to run for governor.
When we as women decide to support each other and encourage each other, yes, it's possible. When we decide to put funds together to make it happen, yes. Women, we're forced to reckon with. We can make anything happen if we want to. So we need to fix that, those critical issues first. Number one is not that crab mentality whereby each woman feels she has to pull the other one down.
Okay.
Once we get past that, we're good to go. Our own party, of course, we call the rules, we call the shots.
All right, now, just before we go, you're a mother. Do you worry that there is probably never going to be a time where Nigeria might see this ever happening? Do you worry? What's the biggest worry for you right now with this sort of environment for women in politics?
Not just politics, just the general life in Nigeria. It's very worrying when you see young girls that are so lost, completely even outside of politics. The young ladies of today, I worry for them. Seriously worry for them. That if from home you don't have the discipline, the focus, the right principles, how are you going to go into a sensitive position and represent those principles and discipline that you should represent and you should guide and be a role model for those coming up? A lot of young women today have been victimized by the society we live in, whereby a lot of them don't feel they have to even they're not, even if they wish to, when they go to university, a lot of them are not even allowed to use their mental abilities to earn their own grades. They have to compromise. You have a lot of them whereby when they do get out of university or college or whatever, and they take their certificates and try and get jobs, to get hired based on their own merits, they have to compromise. When they're already from a very young, from the foundation, being told that they have to compromise their womanhood and self-respect to get anything done, what do you expect will be the output, the product that will be presenting us when they go into office? From, like you said earlier, from the grassroots is where the problem is, and from the grassroots already it is messed up. The young women, we need to encourage them to understand they should respect themselves as much as possible. Hard work does not kill. I owned my first business at 21 years old in America. I owned my first business in America at 21. I have learned, in college, I worked at McDonald's, equivalent of Mr. Biggs. As long as I have learned that as long as you stand on your feet and you work, that $1 has given me the audacity to tell anybody no.
This is gender agenda. It's interesting. This is your month of birth, October, and that is actually very good because you're having this interview. And talking about winding down the year and winding down the show now. Let's look at your work. You know, I'm sure it's very capital intensive and a lot of energy and creativity is needed to be put into it. And what actually amazes a lot of people when they go through your stories is that they see one side of beautiful thing, one whose desire to create beauty for others is this one person, and on the other side is this woman with a heart of gold. Now, tell us how we can find a voice for more people on this platform that you have to come on board and be part of what you're doing, especially women as well.
I think as women we need to support each other. We need to. Some people cannot do what I do, in the sense some people cannot stomach seeing different deformities and abnormalities.
Okay.
Some people cannot either it's time or it's just not their nature. Some people cannot take time or whatever it is and go to very rural places and see people living in the poorest conditions. But for me, it's a calling. It comes naturally to me. So I'm happiest the most when I'm either in the operating room or I'm out doing as one of these donation programs or out doing an outreach program.
People come on board that.
They can support. I mean, we need, for example, everything, like you said, is capital intensive. I put a lot of my funds into this too, so I don't ask people all the time, oh, put some money. Trust me, I do. I put a lot of my money into this because I believe in it. It's what makes me happiest the most. And those that get the opportunity to be part of us, either volunteering their time or be it monetary donations or product donations, companies are donating products to us, and we're looking for more manufacturers that will give us their products, be it non-perishable foods or clothing, whatever it is. We give to the poor. A lot of people can support us. It's one of those ways. If they want to volunteer, by all means, join us and go out there. So donations and participation is pretty much at the end of the day what people can do to support us.
And wanted to reach you, is there a website they can
Yes,
go on?
it's www.b4boy, so b-e-foundation.org.
Okay, and they can send all the inquiries and information can get to them across that. You studied graphic design and business administration.
Yes.
What made you think about cosmetic surgery?
Personal interest. I still lived in LA when I decided that I was going to introduce or pioneer cosmetic surgery in Nigeria. I figured that those of us in America and other Europe and everywhere else, we have access to such brilliant opportunities to take care of ourselves. And I figured Nigerian women, they love to take care of themselves. They spend good money on themselves, even on their hair. I mean, lots of money. So I decided, it was a business investment to come and start Body Enhancement Limited here. So that's what brought me here.
So have you taken care of yourself?
Oh, yes, honey. Thank you very much. You have to. It's just as how you maintain your car. You take care of your house. Maintenance. Your body must be maintained. You have to take care of yourself. Everybody's definition of taking care of oneself is different, no doubt. But you can't say you're not going to brush your hair, you're not going to cut your hair, you're not going to go to the dentist, you're not going to, all of that's exercise, eat right, drink green tea. It's the same thing.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. And you also made it to the Dean's List. Wow. Congratulations.
Yes, thank you.
That is actually what you get when you're an outstanding student in the United States. And she made it within the year of 1994 to 1995. So I'm talking to a star. I like to say thank you so much for being on the show. It's been wonderful and all the best in all your programs. Good.
Thank you.
All right, that, of course, for us today was Gender Agenda. And like she said, what are you going to do about it? And that's where I take my curtain call. My name is Adora Angel. Join me next week as we explore the minds of other women and see how they educate and mentor and share their lives in making sure that we participate in politics and building this economy. Stay with us.